Strong Enough merch is now available. Go to strongenoughpod.com and see all the things that you can get to show your strong enough pride, as well as remind people and yourself that you are strong enough and you are worth it. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about how she uses her own personal experiences to gain trust with clients as a therapist and as a life coach. She's also going to talk about her cancer diagnosis and how she's still fighting and won't let it keep her down. Please help me welcome Dr. Danielle Archer. Danielle, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you already have me smiling because your energy is amazing. So I appreciate that. I am so stoked to have you here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, before we jump into all the good stuff, I would love it if you would tell the audience a little about yourself.
Absolutely. I am born and raised in New York, but I am a transplant here in Central Florida. I've been a licensed mental health clinician for about 14 years now. And over the years, just my areas of focus have changed a little bit. So I've kind of narrowed down my specialties at this stage of my life because I'm old and I don't care. So what I want to do and what I do currently work in is I work in three separate areas. I work in the music industry. I provide mental health coaching for music industry professionals. I also work as a wellness coach for high performing professionals, such as executives, CEOs, people in sports and entertainment. And then I also work in cancer mental health and cancer advocacy. So,
Awesome. Now, I know some of these have a personal story behind them. Will you talk a little bit about what brought you to supporting people who have gone through, are going through cancer, and that type of support and advocacy?
absolutely. When I was 13, 14, my mom had let me know that she had had cancer a couple of years before. She had a mastectomy, a partial mastectomy. She told me about it. And then not too long after that, she was diagnosed with a metastasis. And this was 20 something years ago. So the medications that would normally cure people now is experimental then. So she was told that she had a few months to live. I think she wound up living like 2 years, and then she passed away when I was 16. So I started working. It was interested in mental health in general because of I basically because of the help that I received. I had gone to a support group of teenagers who had lost their parents to cancer through hospice. And then I just started seeing private therapists on my own. So as I kind of grew and started progressing, like I knew that I wanted to kind of help other people the way I had been helped. As far as the cancer advocacy side, I am a cancer patient. I was diagnosed in January of 2019 with stage three colon cancer. So I had had surgery, pathology came back, blah, blah, blah. You've got to get treatment. I've got a port that they inserted in my chest where I get treatment through. And then on April Fool's Day of 2019, I had started chemotherapy. So I've been on some form of treatment for the last 4 years now. And I'm on my second metastasis, so my third go around with cancer. But being in the cancer rooms and working in the community, um, it's actually one of the things that is not really focused on and really highlighted when you're going through treatment. I mean, I get like every couple of times I go to my oncologist, I get like a depression inventory scale, and I'm like, I'm a therapist. I can answer these in my sleep. I'm like, nope, nope. And then, right. So there's not really, they're doing stuff, but there's not really a lot of support. And, we're talking about diagnosis, we're talking about going through treatment and then survivorship and what happens afterwards. Because your life, as you know it, once you're diagnosed, is completely different. Um, no matter what the outcome is, whether you're going full remission or you're a perpetual patient like me, that always your mental health and everything about your life completely changes. So even though this is like my way of life, it still fucks with me. So I go to therapy every week and it's fantastic. but not everybody has that luxury. So I started a blog just to talk about, my experiences, and then I just added some services of doing groups and stuff for people that need it. Um, even working with oncologists that have cancer. They're in the trenches all day long and they're diagnosed. Where do they go? So that was really the thing that kind of drove me to expanding into that space for mental health for the cancer community.
I love that you brought that up as far as oncologists who are diagnosed with cancer and then where do they go? Because that's one of the things, I was thinking about for you is as a therapist, when you struggle, where do you go? Because a lot of people think, well, my therapist is perfect. Like they have no mental health challenges and
Ooh,
everything's,
no.
great and that's why I go in and see them. So do you feel like other people do think that and that there are probably therapists out there who may not get the help they need because they're supposed to be perfect?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually taught in grad school, like, and some grad schools actually have it as a requirement when you're a student is to make sure that you are going to therapy and you have a therapist. But I work with a lot of trauma outside of the cancer community. I work with a lot of trauma, eating disorders, self harm, those kinds of things. So I carry a lot of people's trauma because my role is to carry other people's burdens, so they're not struggling so much anymore. It's a place where they could come share it. But I only have the capacity for so much. So, like, for me, over the years, I've had to not just go to therapy, but I've had to make sure, like, I put really good boundaries in place of like the hours that I work, how many clients I see a day. Because I can't, for me, I know that I can't hold a higher caseload because of the populations that I'm working with and kind of the care that they require.
I relate to that so much. And, we did not plan this. This is not scripted, but that was actually something that I was going to ask you about because I'm sure to a much lesser degree, I deal with that as well because the people that I often have on here, have some sort of struggle or have been through a trauma or a challenge, and then we're here talking about it. And there was a time when I would record episodes, 7 days a week, three
Yeah.
hours a day, whatever. And I realized it was affecting me and my ability to remain healthy and happy and able to serve others. How difficult, if at all, was it for you to realize that and to make the necessary adjustments for your own well-being?
I realized it very early on. But you know, starting out as a therapist, 'cause I've always worked in private practice, starting out as a therapist, like, you want to get all your hours because in Florida, you have to do 2 years like pre-license before you have your full license. So like you're trying to like get all your hours in so you can get your like full unrestricted license as quickly as possible. So you're like taking everybody, you're seeing everybody. I don't care, I'll just fit people in. And even starting out too to like build up your clientele and your reputation in place to get referrals. Like you're just kind of just putting it all out there. And mental health does not pay very well. It does not pay well at all. So then there's the struggle too with clinicians because it's like, yeah, we can accept insurance, but at the same time, like you're limited to how many sessions of this client, you're limited to how many sessions that you have, but insurance also doesn't pay shit. I had one insurance company paying me $25. Like that was all they were paying me. So, it's really hard because you want to serve people, you want to help people, genuinely help people, but it's like I also don't want to see 60 people a week. I can't do that. And that's why I think that there's such a big crisis with people getting mental health care is because as clinicians we're kind of getting burned out. We want to accommodate the population, but the higher ups in insurance land, they don't make it attractive for us. And even with for licensed professionals, like we're also restricted to the states that we're licensed in. So I can't, if you and I were in the same state and you were traveling for work, as soon as you left Florida, I couldn't see you anymore. And it's not like that overseas. It's not like that in Europe and stuff. I think there was like one or two countries you can't do that. but it's very portable, and it's not portable here, so I think that causes a lot of, stress too if you're working with first responders, traveling nurses, musicians. I mean, it's really hard to do that. So,
We had a guest recently who talked about some issues in medical care and the insurance industry when it came to kidney disease and dialysis and things like that. And it sounds like this is very similar, and right now there's such a big push towards mental wellness, mental health advocacy, people dealing with challenges. But it sounds like we're not really hitting the root problem of the ability to address these issues, and that is that our insurance industry is trying to pay you $25 an hour basically to see patients, which is ridiculous. What do we need to do?
I have lots of ideas, but it's hard because you know, we're looking at, even if you have marketplace insurance, like marketplace insurance is expensive. Um, my husband's self-employed, but he pays a large amount of money for our insurance every month and to have his employees covered. So it is really hard because medical care is so expensive. Like even when I get my doctor bills and stuff, you get your explanation of benefits, you'll see like how much like the services are, and then you see like how much like the doctor is actually paid, and then we pay the difference. So it is really difficult because everything is just so expensive and everybody's trying to make money off of each other. I mean, my treatments every time I go to the doctor are $3,500. So if I don't have insurance, it's like, right? So we don't sacrifice that for our physical health, but we sacrifice it for our mental health.
I think a lot of us sacrifice a lot for our mental health, to be honest with you. Now, for those who can't see you, you do not look like your traditional therapist, and I mean that in every way that is amazing.
Thank you.
You are, even though you said old earlier, you are young and hip and cool and tatted up and gorgeous and funny and sassy. I could keep going. But have you found that you have been able to reach a group of people who maybe were resistant to therapy because of who you are, and because of how maybe you approach therapy that might be a little different from, quote, traditional therapist?
I think it's more of the human experience, right? I don't, I mean, I've never, even in my earliest part of my career, like, I've never done like, I mean, I did have a couch, but it's like, like people come, like, kick off their shoes. Like, I had blankets, like, they'd bring a drink or they'd have, somebody would come in with their lunch or whatever. And we would just kind of like, it was more like a living room kind of environment rather than a sterile environment because I believe that in order for be people to be comfortable and authentic and be vulnerable, they have to be physically comfortable. They have to be in a space where they feel like they can do that. And in a sterile environment, I feel, for me, I don't feel that that can necessarily happen. So I want, and that's the thing is, I want people to be who they are. So if I can't be who I am, then why am I expecting somebody else to come and tell me their shit? Like I can't. There's no authenticity there. Like I expect it from you, but you're not getting it from me. That just doesn't. That's just not congruent for me. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I'm definitely not for everybody, and I'm okay with that. Um, but the people that I have, it's because something they're able to identify something with me. Like when I work with people in the music industry, it's I recognize like I do traditional stuff with people in the industry, but I backdoor it based on what their particular role is. And for me, it's having done a little work in that field and being exposed to like a different side of it. So knowing your audience and knowing how to meet them where they're at is just really important. And I think that's where anybody is going to be successful in any line of work that they do.
I want to talk a little bit about that subset of your work where you do work with, music industry professionals, athletes, things like that. Society as a whole, I think, looks at stars, celebrities, as their lives are great. Surely there's nothing wrong with them. What do you mean you're depressed? That doesn't make any sense. You have everything. Just this on and on of reasons why these people shouldn't be suffering. And that's obviously not the case. Do
Mhm.
you find that a lot of times people in those positions have trouble asking for help or recognizing that they need assistance because everybody's telling them that they should be happy and their life is perfect?
Yeah, it's funny. I recently I made a post on Instagram, and it's kind of covering this. It's about enablers versus supporters. Like, do you have enablers in your life or do you have supporters in your life? Right. So if you look at, I don't know why the last 2 days I've just been on repeat listening to Prince's Purple Rain soundtrack. But it makes me think, like, he had people like enabling him and supplying him with medication. Michael Jackson, like, it was people get in the notoriety and riding on people's coattails, and miss they miss the big picture. Like, I'm here to help somebody, not hurt somebody, you know? And people can be blinded by that. You don't have to live in tragedy to write tragic songs. You don't have to live in anger to write a Slipknot song. Like, you don't have to do any of that. But that's what happens is you kind of get pigeonholed, and that's where I think people get stuck. They may recognize that they need help, but it's just very much like what we all do. It's like, oh, I'm fine, like, I'm good, it's cool, like, it's fine. And they supplement in other ways, whether it's just bad habits or just not sleeping, or those kinds of things. So it is really difficult. There's a lot of awareness that happens when somebody dies. So when Chester Bennington committed suicide, Chris Cornell, like, when Amy Winehouse died, there is, like, a really big focus in that community for a period of time, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And everybody kind of like disperses and goes back to their normal lives. What I do in the music industry as a mental health professional is not special, right? There's tons of me out there who work and do what I do and specialize and have knowledge of the music industry and work helping music industry professionals. I am not special. The problem is that we're stuck in a certain level. It's like, labels need to bring us in, management needs to bring us in. We need to be partnered with these people, not on the outside of these people. And I think that's where a lot of times the artists are getting stuck, is that they've got all this other help accessible to them within their confines of their management, within the confines of their label, but they don't have, like, ready accessible. So you can get a massage therapist, you can get a chef, you can get this, you can get, somebody to run weed for you, whatever. But, like, you have this person just, hanging out here, and if you need it. If you're going to do a music video, if you're going to negotiate a contract, if you're having a fight with your significant other, but then you have to go on stage and perform for 3 hours.
Yeah, it's gotta be rough, and you made a great point because I know a lot of people that travel with the massage therapist,
Mhm.
travel with probably the weed guy, I don't know. Tattoo artists, they travel like, they have tattoo artists join them on tour to tattoo while they're on the bus or whatever. What is it gonna take for people to take mental health issues more seriously when it comes to that population?
It's not a priority. A friend of mine, we talked about this, and she was like, it's just not a priority. It's like on people's radar, but it's not like the labels aren't really looking at that. That's not what they're really looking at. But just even from a money maker standpoint, if you're just going to put the business element in it, like, was it more expensive for you to cancel an entire tour, or a couple of, rearrange a couple of dates? I don't know the logistics side of it, so I'm not qualified to answer that. But if you look at there are artists who just I can't. I got to cancel. The rest. I got to cancel the rest of my tour. I can't. I can't do this. So if you want to protect your investment, if you again to take the humanity piece out of it, like why not have somebody that costs X amount of dollars a year or X amount of dollars on a retainer a month, and if you don't use them, you don't use them. If you have it, then great. So I just don't know where the disconnect is, or why we're an unutilized population when we're a very needed population. And everybody agrees we're a very needed population. So, I don't know. It just somebody's going to break out of that mold and bring that in, and they're going to be the groundbreaker, and then everybody's going to do it. So I'm just holding on for that. I'm just waiting for that to happen.
I mean, I think you could be that person who is involved in the breaking ground.
Well, there's a record label out of, I want to say they're in Georgia. Um, it's LVRN, and I know that they have a full-time clinician. They're a smaller subsidy, and I know that I'm pretty sure they have a full-time clinician that works with their staff. Um, and then I'm a service provider for a label called, it's a independent um, community-based label called Hard Drive. And I do some work for them as a service provider. But other than that, I don't know of anybody in the United States that is utilizing those services.
Which seems crazy.
Yeah.
I want to go back and talk a little bit more about your health journey and kind of
Yes.
how that's gone, because I know a lot of people, they talk about cancer and it's a battle, and they win the battle, they lose the battle. This is an ongoing battle for you. How tough is that on your physical self, your mental self, to have to continue this fight kind of day in and day out?
Well, it pisses me off because they were able to make a COVID vaccine in, record time, but they still can't cure cancer with all the money and research that's allegedly happening. But again, there's so many variations of cancer. There's so many types and subtypes and affected by our different biological makeup and everything. That even, I've got a very good friend of mine out in California. We have the same kind of cancer, and she's in remission, but she's got a whole other host of health problems that have arrived from that. I'm still in active treatment. We kid around and we exchange we exchange our blood tests, like to show like where our blood levels are at. She's like, "How are you functioning with your plate?" Like you said, your platelet level is so low. She goes, "How are you functioning with that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just do." Um, so it's hard because when I was first diagnosed, um, I don't know, you kind of expect it to be like all like Hallmark movie kind of like, and it just wasn't. It was just like, like I went for a colonoscopy and we were driving home, and I looked at my husband and I was like, still got some anesthesia running through me to say that I've got cancer. Because that's just what happened. He's like, yeah, that's what happened. I'm like, all right, cool. It was just like that very like, and from there, everything is so, I mean, at least for me, everything was so quick. It was like, okay, like you're going to see the oncologist, and you're going to see you're going to go see the surgeon, and you're going to do this and you're going to that. And it's just, so I don't think you actually have time to like kind of stop and go like, holy shit, what just happened? Right. So that was like a really difficult piece for it. So like every time like they said, well, you got to do this. All right, I'm just going to go do that. Like, even now I go to the doctor, he's like, "Well, we're gonna change your meds." I'm like, "Okay, we change my meds, whatever." Um, so it is very hard to contend with, but also doing what I do for a living, it's also difficult because for me it became very much of a like, do I tell my clients, do I not tell my clients? And that's where I really got stuck for a long period of time because I was like, well, nobody's gonna want to work with me. Who's gonna want to work with me? right? But I realized, like, going through it, like, my clients are fantastic, and they'll say, "How you doing?" And they'll ask how I am, and but for me, it was more of like, again, it's kind of like a piece of authenticity. It's like if I have to reschedule an appointment because my doctor's appointment changed, like I want them to be aware. Hey, I've had a couple of not planned hospitalizations in the last couple of years, and I've had to like mess with it. Hey, listen, I'm in the hospital. Like I got sick. I'm in the hospital, and so it kind of creates that. But I've been fortunate enough that it hasn't been a deterrent for me. And you know what? And it's okay if it is for people. If people don't wanna work with somebody and they go, "I don't know if she's gonna be around or not," like, I don't really wanna start with her because it's totally fine. Like, I get it. I've learned not to take it personal. Um, I've tried not working. I've tried working for other people. I hate all of it. I hate all of it. I love what I do, and I'm gonna do it for as long as I can. So I've learned to structure my appointments and everything, around my treatment days that I know I'm going to be not feeling so hot. Working from home has been great because I can rock pajamas from the bottom down and nobody knows. It's totally fine. Um, but it is kind of, you know, when I've only been in remission for the longest point has been 4 months. So when I got diagnosed the first time, I was done with chemotherapy in September of 2019. I mean, I was a mess. I had because of my surgery and everything, I had an ileostomy, so I had a temporary ileostomy, so I had to get that surgery for that and blah blah blah. So November of 2019 was like when I was like officially declared like no evidence of disease. And then when I went for my first scans post treatment, it was February 2020. The mass showed up in my liver. So it was like literally a few months. And then I had that go on, and then I had a surgery in June of 2020, and then I was in remission for 2 months. And then I haven't been out of remission since then. So it's a difficult thing to balance, but I also can't live my life holding my breath and going, I bought a new car in the last couple of months and I held off on it for so long because I was like, all right, well, let me see because I go get scans every 3 months. All right, let me see what my scans say. Let me see what my scans say. Like you don't want to like plan, but I also can't live my life like that. I don't want to put my job on hold. I don't want to put seeing friends and family on hold. I don't want to like, I don't want to hold on to any of it because what happens is when we stagnate, it doesn't matter if you have cancer or not, when you stagnate and you just become complacent, that's when we start to shrivel up inside. And people come to me like, I have no motivation. Well, yeah, you've been sitting in depression, and depression is a liar, and depression tells you sit your ass down, you ain't getting up. You can't get up when you're actually supposed to be doing the opposite. And that leads to that cycle of depression and no motivation, and I feel like shit, and I'm lazy and I'm useless, and being able to kind of take a step out of that wheel and go, I'm not doing this anymore. And don't get me wrong, I've got bad days. Trust me, I've got bad days, but I can't I can't let those dominate me. I've got kids, I've got grandkids, I got a husband, I got a family, I've got 3 businesses I'm running. Like don't look at me like that. I have grandchildren. I did.
I yeah, for those who can't see, I'm making a face because she just
Don't look at me like
said,
that.
"I've got grandkids," and if you could see her, this is a physiological impossibility.
It is not a physiological impossibility.
I I beg to differ. I'm going to need to see notarized proof of your grandkids. Just saying.
I've got a bunch of them. So, got a
Agree to
bunch.
disagree. So, you
So,
know,
but that's the thing. It's I feel like there is an appropriate time when shit happens to us. Yes, we're gonna cry, we're gonna scream, we're gonna get mad, we're gonna eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's or two, and we're gonna watch Netflix all day in our pajamas, and we're gonna sit in the same clothes for 3 days. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, do all of that. Right? Everybody needs to do that, but it's not where we stay. I know for me, I can't stay there.
How tough was it for you after you went into remission and
Mm,
then your first scans, you had the liver mass? Because I feel like, and I've never been through this,
mm.
but I feel like that's such a celebratory time of yay, cancer free. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then no. Was that more devastating than the initial diagnosis?
Um, no, it wasn't. The difficult thing was when they told me that it metastasized to my liver because my mom had breast cancer, and when she it metastasized to her liver, and she died. So when I saw the liver surgeon, he's a fantastic human being. I love him. And he was like, "Well, if this was 20 years ago," he's like, "you'd be dead with this diagnosis." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, because that's how my mom died." And he was like, "Okay, then." I was like, "That's." So for me, the hardest thing was actually telling my father and my brother that that was my diagnosis. But like, because then I have to like, it's funny because I have like this hierarchy of like who I call first. So it's usually like I'll call like my brother first, and like my oldest daughter, and then like my 21-year-old, and or my dad. Like it just depends, because my dad calls my brother. My brother's got to translate for him. Like, like calm down, like she's okay. So he's usually like my voice of reason. I can call him first. Um, so I think that is more of the harder part of it. And um, I have friends that really don't appreciate my dark humor. They don't appreciate the death jokes. They don't appreciate. There's just people that just don't appreciate my kind of humor, and that's okay.
But
But
they're
again, like,
missing
that's how I
out.
know that I'm not for but that's how I know
Mm.
it's not for everyone. Like, you have to have a certain sense of humor. Some of this stuff, like, you go to a cancer center, you're like, some of this stuff is so ridiculous, and you go, "This can't be people's lives." Like, you just can't. Like, I called, like, going to chemotherapy because I've been going so long. It's like going to, like a fucked up version of Cheers, right? If you ever right? You remember that show? I go in, like, I see the nurses like, "How your kids doing?" "Did you see this movie?" Like, it's just like this. And, like, anything like, it's like anything goes in there, like, people come, like, dressed for work, some people are, like, completely, like, people Walmarted out, like, there's but, like, anything goes and, like, nobody cares,
I love
right?
that.
Yeah, it's great because it's, like, the weirdest, like, most, like it's, like, the shittiest environment, but it's, like, almost but it's also, like, the most normal and accepting environment too, because you have all these people that are kinda, like, in the same boat as you, and everybody's just, like, "We're just doing cancer the best way that we can." That's all it is. There's no right or wrong way, it's just whatever works for you.
How difficult is it because of your profession and wanting, you have dedicated your life to helping people and to supporting them through their problems.
Mhm.
But when you have a problem and you even said, oh, it's tough. Like I gotta call my dad, I gotta call my brother. How tough is that for you to kind of take off that helping hat and put on the Danielle's gotta take care of herself hat?
Oh god, the vulnerable thing, yeah, we wrestle with that. We wrestle with that a lot. So, um, doesn't happen often. I like I said, I have my therapist, I see her, she told her, I'm like, "You're not allowed to go anywhere because I can't tell all my shit to somebody new because they think I was crazy." But, it is that vulnerability piece, but it's not that I don't. I mean, I'll talk about it to whoever wants to hear about it, I don't care. But the vulnerability piece and the more emotional side of it, no. Nope. Like, I'll do, like, a good we went to the doctor for something, I don't even remember, and we left, and I was really upset, and I was crying, my husband was trying to, like, comfort me, and I was like, "Give me 15 minutes to do this, to cry." And then I cried, and then I was like, "Alright, alright, let's go, like, we're good." And it's just again because I can't for me I cannot wallow in it. I can't let that be the dominating feature emotionally of my life. Physically, yes. Like I've got to take care of my health. I've got to do the things to take care of myself. My blood levels are shit. Like they're not well. Um, so trying to minimize stress, trying to have a routine, trying to eat better, exercise, drink water, all of that. I know. I know. I've had this for 2 days. So just
We're soul
2 days and
sisters.
it's not, yeah, this
Yeah.
this cup is still full of water. Um, so those are the things that I have to prioritize because I'm still a wife, I'm still a mom. I've got, two small children. Well, small, they're 10 and 11, but I still have two children at home. Um, I have businesses that I want to run and I want to continue with. So I have to take care of myself and prioritize myself in a different way.
Has it gotten easier or more difficult for you to ask for help?
Ooh. Well, I'm glad you're asking me that question. Not anybody that I know, because they will tell you that I do not ask for help. I'm not the helper, you know, asking kind of person. Um, I don't know. I've just learned to manage it, and I think it started really early because when I got diagnosed with cancer the first time, and I was, scheduled to start chemotherapy, my husband had to have emergency open heart surgery 3 days before I started chemotherapy. Um, so like we're in like the same hospital. Like one side was like the cancer center, the other side was he's in cardiac ICU. Like hopped up on all massive doses of ketamine. They had to keep him still. Um, and I went to my first chemotherapy, and I was like, okay, like my dad was with me, and while like in my first chemotherapy, my husband's in the cardiac ICU, my dad's with me, and I get a call from the school that my daughter's sick. My poor dad is like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, Dad, I'm like, just go get her from school. I'm like, she's thrown up in the trash can in the classroom. Like, go get her. I said, I'm in a hospital. I'm with the nurses. Like, I'll be fine. But that kind of like set the tone. So it was like, okay, I was driving myself to and from treatment. I used to have to go home with a medicine bag and, like plugged into my port, and I was carried around like in a fanny pack for 2 days. So I just learned to take myself back and forth to treatment and do things with the kids and everything because he got home and for 8 weeks he couldn't do anything. So I'm driving him, the kids, doing all the stuff. So that's just how I learned to operate out of necessity. And I mean, I worked through it. I would go to treatment and then go back to work. Um, I don't know. I mean, it was just something that I did and I just continue to do. I just learned how to deal with it.
In watching you go through this with such strength and grace and some curse words, which I love,
Lots of them.
what do you want your kids to take from your experience? What is one thing that you really want them to learn or see as you deal with this?
Hmm. I don't know, like, I try to be as open and honest with them as possible, especially the younger kids. My older kids know, what's going on, and they know, like, everything. But with the younger ones, it's a little bit harder, so to try to explain stuff to them, like, when I went, last week was spring break, so I had to go to the doctor and get treatment. My daughter's like, "Oh, well, you getting," she calls it, I don't know why, she calls my port my auto thingy. She's like, "You getting your auto thingy taken?" I was like, "No." I'm like, "This is staying in for a while." And she was like, "Oh, okay." So, like, so I try to include them and, like, just see, like, they see when I'm sick, they know when I have a bad day, like, I've pivoted, like, when I had my first metastasis, it was right when COVID happened, and they got homeschooled, so I was homeschooling them while I'm getting cancer treatment, can't get out of the bed, so, like, all of this was happening. So it's really just a matter of, being able to take care of yourself, but also do what you need to, right? It's like I'm gonna take care of myself and I'm gonna rest and I'm gonna when I'm sick, like this is what I'm gonna do to take care of myself, but I'm also not gonna ignore the things that I love and are important to me. you know. So finding that balance and being able to kind of have the best of both worlds.
I love that. You have talked a few times today about movies, and I know that you incorporate movie quotes and song
I
lyrics and
do.
all kinds of different stuff into your therapy practices. I just want to know, what is your favorite movie and or your
Oh
favorite movie line to
gosh.
throw out in therapy?
It's very situational. Like today I used because I'm older, the old Mission Impossible TV show. Like they used to have the thing in the beginning with you strike the match and then light the thing, do the fuse to the bomb. And so I used like Mission Impossible today. I've used Avengers movies, Avengers movies a couple of times in therapy. Um, so some quotes, not so much, but like definitely movies comes up a lot for me because I watch way too many of them. Um, but it's also giving people a frame of reference. I know from a clinical, like, so I take something that's normally would be very clinical and sterile, like, book wise, and I try to take it and like rearrange it and like put it out in a context that somebody is relatable to someone.
I feel like I would probably have a lot of Dumb and Dumber quotes in my therapy sessions. But anyway, well, I want to keep talking about something fun. We're going
Yes,
to talk
I like
about
fun.
tattoos a little bit.
Yes.
I am wearing short sleeves today, which is a rarity because I live in Colorado and it's chilly
Yeah.
willy. So I love tattoos, as you can tell, and people who know me know. You have tattoos as well. I would love to hear about your favorite tattoo that you currently have.
Huh. I don't know if this is my favorite. The first tattoo I got, my birthday's at the end of October, well, near the end of October, and I got my first tattoo when I turned 18. So I went on Halloween. I went by myself. It's like some random tattoo shop. I was away at college, and I went to some random tattoo shop. I got my first tattoo. Um, it's two roses. It's over my heart. Um, my mom's name was Rose. She had breast cancer in her left breast. Um, so it was just like a very symbolic thing. But I remember I didn't want to tell my dad at all about it. So I told my brother. He's 4 years older than me. I was 18. He was 22 at the time, and he had just gotten his first tattoo. And I told him about it, and he was like, he did this such a big brother move. He was like, "If you don't tell dad that you got that tattoo," he's like, "I'm going to tell him." Like, really? So, so
No,
I'm
sir.
like, I was like, all right. I think that was his gentle way of nudging me to tell my dad. Um, so I told my dad, and my dad was very disappointed. Um, he's like, "Where'd you get it?" And I told him, and he like moved my shirt a little bit, and he was like, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "At least I waited till I was 18." My dad got his first tattoo when he was 13. So, like, my big, thing was, at least I wait till I was 18, and he didn't he didn't really like that either. So
Sounds fair to me.
yeah, yeah. So that was my first one that I gotten. That was pretty significant for a different number of reasons, but,
Are there tattoos in your future?
yes and no. I have a bunch of them planned, but I have to get clearance from my doctor, to make sure that, healing and bleeding out and that kind of stuff kind of gets in the way. And my
It's
skin's really
important.
sensitive now from years of being poked and prodded. So my skin's really sensitive, so I don't even know if I can tolerate it at this point. But I'd like to, if I could, I'd like to. So,
What do you want to get?
um, my we're a blended family. But our 21-year-old, she's my oldest daughter. So we've got something when I get a mother daughter tattoo that we have planned. So
Okay. And
So that would be my next one.
and she's over 13, so it should be fun.
She is, but she's me. She went hard as soon as she turned 18. She got 2 tattoos in like same week. Her first tattoos in the same week. So
My first tattoo story is very similar to yours in that I was 17, but yeah, I went to some random shop by myself. I was in college, so I totally can relate. Danielle, where can people find you? So, if they want to learn more about all the cool things that you do when it comes to therapy and happen to live in the state of Florida where you can assist them, if they want to talk to you about cancer support, advocacy, anything like that, or if they want to come, get in on the mother-daughter tattoo sesh, where can they find you?
the best way to find me is on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Doc D Therapy. So that is probably the best place to find me. My page is public, so there's no special hoops anybody has to jump through to see my content. But that's the best place that people can reach out to me at. And a lot of the services that I do is that I can do nationwide because I do a lot of coaching, and coaching I can do nationwide. So
Awesome. I feel like a lot of people, especially that watch and listen to this, are going to resonate with you and your style. So maybe we can get some of those therapy fraidy cats into some coaching and start looking at some options to improve their lives. Danielle,
absolutely.
I super appreciate your time today. I'm so grateful that you were willing to share your story with me. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough, you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.